I got new skates. So these are the Gawds Tim Franken skates. And I gotta say, they look pretty great. So Gawds is a lifestyle brand that Frankie Morales started about 10 years ago or so. And then they started making wheels. They started working with Powerslide to make wheels. And about 5 years ago, they started making skates. Those initial skates were based off of the carbon free. So it was a plastic shell with a integrated liner, a skin. Look really great. They're actually some of my favorite skates. This is the first of the all plastic skates that Gawds has released. It's based on the old USD VII, which has been reformatted with this new aesthetic. A little bit of shininess, a little bit of lace change, but essentially it is a USD VII, which was my favorite plastic shell boot until they discontinued it about 3 years ago. So probably the best thing about this skate is it is a flat sole boot. What that means is inside this boot, it is completely flat. And the way that they get a forward lean to make it feel like you're falling forward a little bit, which is like an athletic stance, is with a shock absorber. With the Tim Franken, the shock absorber is velcroed onto the liner. So you can see this is the shock absorber, which gives you a little bit of forward lean. In addition to the shock absorber underneath the liner, if you take out the insole, there is a shock absorber built into the insole. This plus this shock absorber might be a little too much, makes it feel like you're falling forward a little bit more. But the positive is, because it's a flat sole boot, you can adjust this to your liking. So my preference is more of a laid back, lean back style, K2 style, where it's less of a shock, less of a forward lean. But if you wanted more of a forward lean, you could take this off and replace the bottom inside the boot with whatever shock you want. You could put one of the big puffy Razors SL ones in there. You could remove it completely and just skate completely flat so that you're really leaning back. Now this prime liner is kind of a Frankenstein of all the different liners that you can find in the Powerslide arsenal. The tongue is built off of the USD carbon. You can see where the little carbon dot is. My USD carbons have the exact same tongue. This back area, I think, comes from the second skin or maybe from the crown. It is supposed to be more supportive in the back, which looks nice. They are heat moldable. I haven't heat molded them yet. I always like to skate them stock. And if the fit is any issue, I'll probably heat mold them after this session. They do have a neoprene toe in the front, which is really nice to adjust to different size. You can see my fingers sticking through the front of this toe. If your foot is a little longer, then your toes will stick out through here. That'll make it a little bit more comfortable and allow you to skate these liners even if your feet are a little bit big. The weird thing about this liner is there's not a lot of support. Feels like the ankles have a lot of support, but this area is just really floppy. And I'm not used to that. Usually in high-end liners like this area is like a thick foam, like an Intuition or a Rossi's RL1. In this case, it's not. So I'm really curious what this is gonna feel like. Honestly, it just feels like material. It doesn't feel like there's any padding in there, maybe a little bit of padding, but really it's just like a felt covering with just some material in there. I don't think it's gonna offer any support and potentially some discomfort. So they come stock with the USD VII sole plate and the Kaiser Fluid foreframe anti-rocker. These are 58 millimeter wheels, 90A. These are the Gawds anti-rocker wheels. I think they're 47. They're super hard. I don't really have a rating on them. This is a pretty good setup if you're just getting started. This is my favorite for learning royales and learning groove tricks. It's got a really nice, generous lean, so you don't have to get too boot down when you're doing royale tricks. One of the cool things is the new eyelet system. So the old USD VII just had eyelets built into the boot. These have these little hooks that come out. It should help with the way that you lace up your skates, make it a little bit easier to get equal tension around the lacing area and suck your foot in a little bit more. By far the coolest thing about the USD VII boot with the USD VII sole plate is that it is built for this sole plate, so it has mounting screws underneath the sole plate that mount this sole plate directly to the boot. Rather than using just 2 UFS bolts to keep this sole plate on, which is what a lot of people do, this combination of boot and sole plate is going to be super responsive because it has screws bolting it directly into the boot. So I'm here at my local skate park. This is in Durham, North Carolina. I'm gonna do a few grinds, do a few airs, skate around a little bit, see if I can detect what the fit is like and what the feel is like for my style of skating. And I'll let you know what I think. All right, so these are a size 44. They are the 43-44 shell, and my foot is 28.5 centimeters. Fit is fine. You know, if anything, they're very roomy. I feel like there's a lot more length. So if you had a narrow foot, but you were like a size 11, I bet you could downsize into this 43-44 boot. Because there's a plenty of room forward and back. I can wiggle my toes with no problems, not hitting anything up there. Very generous. Width-wise, feels good. Maybe like a normal width. I would say maybe a little bit wider than normal, but definitely feels good. I have a fairly normal D width foot, and I don't have any issues here. Some weirdness with these liners. I don't know what it is, but I'm getting some digging into the top of my toes where the tongue connects to the liner itself. Not a good feeling. These liner tongues are from the USD Carbon, which is a single piece design. Maybe this tongue isn't designed for mounting with a removable liner, but it's definitely wiggling around a lot, and I could feel it kind of digging in, kind of like the stock racers liners. Definitely not a good feeling. I'm having some weird forward flex problems. These boots, I've tightened the laces as much as I can. I've tightened the buckles as much as I can before my feet start hurting, and I can still flex super far forward. It feels very sloppy, and I don't know that that's a USD VII issue. I don't remember that from the old USD VII. Might be new introduced, I don't know. I don't know what causes that, but definitely not a good feeling. It feels very floppy. Might be good for some tricks, but I like a more solid, a more supportive boot. The lacing system, much improved. I love the little eyelets that have the little hooks that slide through. You can pull from the top and you get zero resistance. Pull them tight, tie them tight, and they'll stay tight. This is much better than the cross-section style that they do with most boots. Yeah, these were great to get tight, and I felt like I could see that boot suck my foot in a little bit, and I don't have any issues in the front half of my boot. It's really just the back half where the cuff is that's causing me some weirdness. All right, let's try some grinds. All right, sole tricks are fine. I didn't expect them to be difficult. It's a USD VII sole plate and Kaiser fluid foreframe, so I'm very familiar with this setup. I am getting a lot of wiggle inside this boot. It feels like my foot is just floating around inside here. I don't know if it's the liner. Like, I'm getting a little bit of heel raise, which is weird because this liner has those little dots that keep the heel in the back of the boot. I'm hesitant to blame the liner on this, but I don't know what else has changed, you know? Like, the USD VII was a great skate. I had absolutely no issues with it, and now this is different. So we'll see how groove tricks feel. But yeah, I'm feeling like there's a little bit more wiggle than I'd like with this liner and boot combination. So I might swap out the liner for the next session. One weird thing with this skate is I'm hearing this squeaky. That's like the squeak coming from inside the frame. I don't know if it's a bearing or what, but I'm gonna have to take the skate off and investigate because I can't handle loud squeaky skates. There's something going on under there. It just feels like a little mouse is underneath my skate, pushing the wheels like Fred Flintstone, trying to get things moving. All right, no problems with groove tricks. They're a fluid 4 with a USD VII sole plate. This is, you know, my most comfortable setup. So definitely wasn't as low as I'd like to be, but that's just the way that this setup is. If you want to get boot down, you have to get super low, which is great for learning. I would probably swap it out for a slightly taller frame just so that I could get a little bit lower. It's just a little bit more comfortable for me, but it's all personal preference. The wiggle inside this boot is definitely annoying. Like, I feel like my foot's just moving around so much in there. I don't know what's going on. It's just, I feel like I need to swap out this liner with a stock liner that came with the USD VII and see if I could figure out if it's the boot that's changed or if it's just the liner, because I had no issues skating the USD VIIs. I don't remember any of this flop, but again, it's been a few years, so maybe me being used to a single piece like a USD Carbon or like the Gawds FM3 has changed my perspective on plastic shell boots with a removable liner, but this definitely isn't it. All right, let's try some topsides. All right, so they work for topsides. I am the first person to admit that my topsides suck. I haven't done topsides on a ledge in a long time, so take everything with a grain of salt, but didn't have any problem flexing over. Been skating a lot of my box at home, and I will do some more topsides on that box just to see if I can land it. But yeah, I think they work. Maybe a little bit stiffer than I would like, but you know what? Me not being good at topsides, it's really hard to have a judgment on it. I think they're fine. The big sole plate definitely keeps me from slipping out. I never fell, so that's a good thing. I do feel like lower frame might counteract that and make it more difficult to get boot down or flat with my frame, but again, not an expert. All right, so they're good skates. They might not be perfect fit for me. I feel like there's a lot more room inside that boot than needs to be for a size 44. I feel bad for anybody who's trying to ride these as a 43 because I think you're gonna be swimming in this boot. Definitely a good boot for downsizing or a good boot for a big puffy liner like a Crown liner or a Fat Boy or something like that. Performance-wise though, they're great. You know, USD VII sole plate is the best. These Kaiser Fluid 4s, although they aren't great for me, absolutely slide, no problems. Great for beginners, great for people just trying to get back into blading and learn Royale tricks because they're very forgiving. Next for me, I think I'm gonna swap out these liners and see if I can get either a Fat Boy or something with a little bit more padding in there. I feel like that will fix a lot of the problems. I just feel like my foot is just swimming around inside, and that's just not a good feeling. I need a little bit more responsiveness, and you know, honestly, I don't know what the original USD VIIs felt like, but I probably am gonna go back to the original USD VII liner and see if it makes any difference. It should be the same shell, so that's the liner that I skated for a long time. If I still skate that liner in this boot and it feels good, then it's the liner. If it feels bad, then, you know, over the years since I skated the USD VII, maybe my tastes have changed. Huge thank you to everybody who supported the channel, especially our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/backtoblading. If you'd like to send a buck or two a month, we would really appreciate it. It helps with our helmet initiative and with all of our skate reviews. If you're interested in seeing how these skates progress, make sure that you like this video and subscribe. Hit that bell so that when I publish a new video, you get notified. I'll be skating these for about a month, trying different combinations to see what works for me. So far though, if you're in the market for a pair of skates, these are great. They're just a little pricey, and they might be a little big for you. Really take that sizing with a grain of salt. I might actually recommend downsizing one size if you are. So hard to say. I'll report back with a different liner, but thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.